Welcome in, Cubs. It is me once more, your favourite friendly despair bear, Annakuma, and I am here with by far my longest video to date, and this is for a good reason. On September 19th, Broken Sword Reforged will have, depending on when the video drops, been released, and a classic game that I have loved since I was a child will have a chance to find a new generation of fans. When I heard that not only are we getting Reforged, but in 2025 a whole new entry into the series with Broken Sword 6 Parsifal Stone, I decided that I really wanted to try my hand at a retrospective series of videos on the Broken Sword games, and where better to start than right at the beginning. So let me introduce you to the beauty that is Broken Sword, the Shadow of the Templars.
Paris in the fall, the last months of the year and the end of the millennium. The city holds many memories for me, of cafes, of music, of love, and of death.
Personally, I got this game when I was still a tiny cub. My mum would buy PC games from bargain bins, and many of them were point-and-click games. I had Broken Sword close to day one, and along with games like Monkey Island, Sam & Max, Day of the Tentacle, and Hocus Pocus Pink Panther, Broken Sword became part of my gaming personality. It blew my mind as a child and continues to do so to this day. It is in fact a game I stream quite regularly on Twitch. I don't care that my audience are probably pretty tired of seeing it, but I just love sharing the game with everyone as much as I possibly can. And as an example of how much I love this game, for my birthday this year, my mod team actually banded together to buy me the Kickstarter for the collector's edition of Reforged. I was hoping to buy it myself, but I missed the original deadline thanks to lack of funds because I'm unemployed, so they came together thanks to Warted to get me the bundle anyway. This just proves that Broken Sword, and especially Shadow of the Templar, is just that important to me as a gamer. But what is Broken Sword to begin with? In 1996, Revolution Software released Broken Sword, the Shadow of the Templars, or Circle of Blood in the US, to critical acclaim. It was written by Charles Cecil, David Cummins, and Jonathan Howard, and they managed to sweep you off your feet and into Paris in the fall. The writing team went above and beyond in the game, with every character having unique dialogue for nearly every interaction you can have with them, as well as weaving a mystery that would make Dan Brown weep. This was also brought to life by Egan Cahill and Neil Breen, who both worked for Don Bluth Studios. They gave the game its detailed and memorizing backdrop, from the streets of Paris, underground dig sites, a market in Syria, or even the dreary-looking deserted moorlands of Scotland. As a kid, I never thought about the backdrop, but I think, and this is number one of many side notes probably, that as I was a Don Bluth kid growing up, this probably made the game even more special to me. It also might explain my attachment to it at such a young age. The attention to detail and breathtaking beauty of the game was something I watched quite often in films like Pebble and the Penguin, Troll in Central Park, or All Dogs Go to Heaven. It is funny looking back and thinking this could have been a huge factor in why a not even yet double digits Annakuma was so in love with the game. Broken Sword just feels different though. I class myself as a LucasArts kid. The Monkey Island games, Sam & Max, and Day of the Tentacle were some of my first games. A year after Broken Sword, in 1997, Curse of Monkey Island would release, which, up until reliving the Broken Sword series recently, was what I would always claim was my favourite game of all time. I loved the humour, the fantasy worlds they put us in, and the crazy over-the-top characters we'd meet. Even now that I'm an adult and properly going through the King's Quest games, those games are speaking to me from the fantasy side, something, for example, the Discworld games also did for me as a child. I love the crazy worlds they build, the fairy tales that King's Quest especially borrows from, and the fantastical creatures we meet.
in a second-hand set of dimensions. In an astral plane that was never meant to fly.
With Broken Sword though, it felt like I was being pulled into the real world. Whilst the story was a murder mystery, it felt much more grounded in reality. It was like a movie, as if Indiana Jones had a baby with the Da Vinci Code and it didn't have Nicolas Cage in it. It took away from the over-the-top humor and the fairy tale backdrop and stuck you in the real world. For me as a kid, and even now, they managed to do this perfectly. They didn't strip back the humor, they just used it naturally and in a grown-up and dry way. It was there to diffuse the tension at high-stake moments, to give characters real personalities, and it never took away from the thrill of adventure and sometimes very dark and sad moments. Everything about the game felt natural, from interacting with the other characters to just walking around in an alleyway. Heck, if you check the garbage in the first area, you get actual reactions to the bins. There's actual smell mechanics in there as well, and a wonderful jump scare with a cat. There is a reason that Broken Sword was critically acclaimed. It sold well on both PC and PlayStation, despite the latter worrying that a 2D game wouldn't sell well on the console. Since its debut in 1996, it has stayed with people to the point that in 2009 we got the director's cut that added in additional levels featuring the second and originally unplayable protagonist Nico Collard. Bonjour, Kula! It added an extra layer to the mystery and let us see what a character who many sat in her apartment in Paris actually did to gain the knowledge that she has. And now, in 2024, we're sat here with Reforged at our feet, celebrating nearly 30 years of a classic game beloved by its fans. But before we get into the meat of this video, let's go over some ground rules. First up, the structure of the video going forward. I'm going to start by walking you through the main story, the places you'll go and the people you'll see. After that, we'll talk about the gameplay before my final words on the game. Secondly, I will not spoil any puzzle or big story beat in the overview of the game. Depending on what you class as a spoiler though, I will be talking about how certain characters come together, what locations we'll be visiting, and a few of the smaller beats in the story. It is really hard to make a retrospective work without diving a little deeper into some parts of the game, so whilst I won't be telling you how to complete any puzzles, and I won't spoil the mystery, there might be slight spoilers I can't really avoid. Finally, I will not be talking about the director's cut. I do want to make a shorter look at the changes in the director's cut, and I did think about putting both into one video, but I decided that a shorter video looking at the differences would be more than enough. And as you'll probably have noticed, this video will be long, and I can't promise that my voice gets any better to listen to than it has this far. So as long as you're ready to go on this journey with me, then let us begin. So, this is George Stober. George is an American tourist and our protagonist. We get to play as George as he stumbles around the world doing his best to solve a crime for no other reason than he was there when it happened and felt like it. I have a lot to say about George, but we'll get there when we get there. We start the game with George just sitting enjoying Paris. He orders a drink from the waitress and is just sat relaxing when out of nowhere we get a clown jump scare. Moments later, as the clown scampers away, an explosion throws George from his seat, kills a gentleman inside the cafe, and knocks the waitress out. When you gain control of George, you can walk in and see the destruction for yourself, and get your first taste of the game's dialogue options. Unlike other games where you are met with a wall of different sentences to answer the NPCs with, in Broken Sword you are given things to ask about, but you never really know what George is actually going to say. We don't really have too much of a say over George's personality, but there are moments like when you get to pick whether or not to give the waitress a drink that do have small consequences later. Usually just small dialogue changes here and there, most very missable, but it is the only real agency you have over George, and the changes could be quite fun to spot on subsequent playthroughs. Overall though, the game has a story to tell, and your job is to sit back and piece together the mystery as it's being told to you. George and his personality are pretty much set in stone. He is rude, obnoxious, the typical tourist, but also the stereotypical lovable rogue type that manages to wheedle his way into the hearts of the people that he meets.
Why, George, you're absolutely the most...
But back to the cafe, and there isn't much to learn here yet. And whilst you can explore the alleyway a little and find that cat scare, you'll mainly be leaving the area and meeting one of the finest characters in the game, Officer Moo, and probably the greatest exchange of dialogue in any game ever.
Whoa, don't shoot. I'm innocent. I'm an American.
Can't make up your mind, huh?
This one interaction pretty much sums up the tone of the game. As I keep saying, it is a mystery, a grand adventure. It is dark and you're on the trail of a cold-blooded killer, but it has a softer side and a humor that really makes you chuckle. It feels like a cozy murder mystery show like Murder, She Wrote or Diagnosis Murder, where you know something bad is happening, but the people solving the bad thing are whimsical and interesting. This calm and tranquil day in Paris is all taken away in a moment by a clown and a big bang. And not the fun kind of clown or bang. Moo and Inspector Russo have a wonderful first impression on George. Moo starts by trying to talk to the dead man.
Stop that, monsieur. Stop holding your breath at once.
Has it occurred to you that he may be dead, Moo?
Oui, monsieur, but I prefer to look on the bright side.
Russo has a wonderful line about comedy Belgians.
But he was a fictitious character, monsieur. Why, he was no more real than Poirot or Tintin.
That's different, Moo. They were comedy Belgians.
And even when leaving and asking for advice, they give him this kind of advice.
What about my personal safety? Can't you at least give me some advice?
What can I say? Stay alert and look out for suspicious characters.
And don't cross the road until the little man shows green.
Great advice.
This whole interaction is very fun, and Moo's lines change depending on whether or not you give the brandy to the waitress, but this interaction also kind of is why George is determined to find a killer on his own. And you can't really blame him. I love the two characters, but the entire charade in the cafe doesn't really fill you with confidence that these two will actually find out who killed Plantar. And as we were also in the bomb blast radius, it is kind of personal to us. Just a quick editor's note, in going back to re-record lines from the waitress, I noticed if you just tell Russo that you didn't see anything, you get this wonderful line of George just insulting Paris.
Circus clown? Did you see him, monsieur?
Oh yeah. Now you come to mention it, there was a clown. I didn't think much of it at the time. After all, this is Paris.
I have probably seen it before once in my many replays of this game, but it is so funny when you just find moments in a game that you never knew existed, or at least totally forgot about. There are probably a few different ways you can play this scene out, and it's fun to see the different reactions, so I thought I'd just add this funny moment in. Now, back to the video. We're kicked out of the cafe though, and already outside we meet basically the second main character, Nicole Collard. She's a photojournalist on the trail of a costumed killer. After hearing your story, she'll give you her phone number to contact her if you have any leads, and then she'll just leave. This then leads you to your first set of puzzles. Once the clown did run into the alley, you are personally met with a dead end.
I took a deep breath and prepared to climb the drainpipe. I guess the clown had an escape over the rooftops.
Your number one mission is talking to the worker on the screen where Moo arrested you. This area also has a telephone, so when you have done what you need to do, you can easily get back in touch with Nico. After a trip through the sewer, you have enough information to call up Nico and get her address. Two things here though. First up, the two characters you meet here, the worker and the valet inside the building next to him, are characters that can feel like a one and done, but are 100% worth coming back and talking to throughout the playthrough. They don't have too many extra lines of dialogue, but the little they say when you meet them again just shows how much love was poured into every detail. Their lives do go on, and you get a little snippet of that if you ever want to just wander back in and talk to them. It is also another time that could be missed, where because you tell the valet that you are Inspector Russo, he'll tell you that the real inspector talked to him after you did. It is a fun little thing, and I'll come back to it at least one other time in this overview, but it is the tiniest of details that could very much be missed. but which adds so much to the game. The second thing is this envelope that you write your phone numbers and some of your clues down on. I feel this envelope is underused and was such a wonderful way of keeping track of things. The fact that George even doodles on it is brilliant. It is something missing from every other game, especially when you get nearer the end of the series when mobile phones become a thing. But it was something I relate to as someone who forever just picks up envelopes that I have lying around that I haven't thrown away yet and starts to scribble notes on them. This area is a bit of a tutorial for what is to come. You'll be going into a sewer and then leaving the area having maybe made someone rich.
I'm off to put some money on that night.
Smelling a bit worse. And having parts of a clown costume in your jacket. It slowly gets you used to how the puzzles will be. Not overly complicated inventory puzzles or moon logic filled stuff. You'll be talking to people, finding clues and then moving on. After you've had your fun in the sewers, you can call Nico and she'll give you her address and off we go.
Why don't you come here to my apartment?
Fine. Where do you live?
361 Rue Jarry.
Okay, I'll come right over.
Here we'll get our first look at the map. Now, there isn't anything super special about it. I think personally that it's a great map. It is some kind of roadmap of Paris with some of the sightseeing spots pointed out. Whether they're pointed out correctly or not, I couldn't tell you. I know nothing about Paris, but it is a cute little map. What I really like about the map, though, is that your destinations are kind of pinned to it, and when a place becomes unavailable, and only a few really ever do stop becoming visitable, it just grays out the box a little so that you can still see your journey around both Paris and the world without having to backtrack to random locations that really aren't worth backtracking to. Nico's apartment from now on will act as some kind of hub for you. Every road you take will bring you back to Nico, but before we go in, we have another nod to a fantastic character who is worth coming and talking to all the time in Fleur, selling her flowers outside the apartment. This game, and I will say it all the time, is full of absolute gems when it comes to side characters, and Fleur has always had a big place in my heart. She'll give you some lowdown on Nico, and it's just genuinely a lovely older lady, and you can even learn a little about flower language from her.
Are the flowers for sale?
Oui, monsieur.
Okay. I'll take a bunch of those white ones.
I wouldn't do that if I was you.
No?
They are lilies, monsieur. Some people associate them with death.
Yikes. Thanks for telling me.
A nice little touch is I believe you have to talk to her originally to get into the apartment as the door sticks and she'll warn you about it. Something very small but very human.
Remembering the flower seller's advice, I pushed the door gently just above the lock.
We're finally inside Nico's apartment, and I guess one thing I'd like to talk about is the thought the designers put into the smallest of details. George will always walk to wherever he is sitting. There are only a few times where it cuts to George already in the room, but if we're personally entering a room, he'll be seen coming into the room and not just teleport to where he needs to go. He'll also make himself comfortable, so he'll sit with his legs crossed and later even moves to the sofa in the background. Nico will also move to look around the room depending on who she's talking to at any given point. It's just lovely little details like this that I love. At this point with Nico though, it is all about opening the world out. To do this, we have to get it to inspect all the items we have. You can do this by clicking on them in the inventory whilst talking to her. It is so worth showing everyone every item for the unique reactions. There is another character we can talk to, the tailor Todrick, who you can annoy to hell and high water over the phone in Nico's, but he won't tell you anything till you can give him a name. Thankfully, after giving the items to Nico, and she's looked over them, you get a lead at a costume shop, and a gentleman that will give you the vital information you need, but also one of the best items in the game.
Huh? Well, okay.
In fact, there are two great items in this. First, the grease rack we find in the sewer. Everyone has such weird reactions to this greasy thing being shoved in their faces, and George doesn't seem to really notice.
I found this tissue down the sewer.
Oh, that's disgusting, George.
I think the stuff on it is grease paint, like actors use. Or clowns.
It's still disgusting. Get rid of it.
You have a cold. What you need is vitamin C. And a side order of machine oil.
Never use them. Those things are unhygienic.
A man-sized double-ply tissue stained with Bestheimer's number 12 white pancake grease paint, apparently.
You've been hanging around with actors?
The second is what the guy in this store will give you, the electric hand buzzer. Yes, George can spend the entire game trying to buzz every character he comes face to face with.
I'd like to shake you by the hand, Mr. O'Brien.
I'd rather not. You see, I happen to notice that vibrating buzzer in your palm.
Would you like to shake my hand, ma'am?
Now, George, there's no need to be so formal. We met as tourists, and I want to keep it that way, despite the enormous social gulf between us.
Shake hands, Dwayne.
Why?
I'm just being friendly.
Let's just be friendly by keeping our hands to ourselves. Yeah?
Would you like to shake my hand?
No, I wouldn't. I can see the future, remember?
Shake my hand, Benoit.
I don't think that's a good idea, sir.
How come?
Dermatitis.
I don't have dermatitis.
I do.
May I shake your hand?
No, you can't.
Well, how come?
Because I'll spill me beer if you do.
Give me your hand.
Get lost.
Oh, come on. I just want to show you a little trick.
No way, mister. I don't do tricks. Father Mahoney told me I'd burn in hell if I did.
I just want to shake your hand, that's all.
Oh, all right.
Gotcha. Neat, huh?
Didn't feel a thing. Didn't feel a thing.
The funniest thing being that he initially is very angry about it himself, but he doesn't seem to mind attempting it on nearly every other poor soul. It is also funny who he will and won't try it on. Not even trying it on Pearl because he likes her, but 100% trying on nearly everyone else. Again, it's one of those things that generally is just worth doing. In any other game, you'd be doing it out of frustration, but in this game, you're doing it purely because the outcome is always worth it.
It's a gag. A practical joke.
If you ever use it on me, I'll break your arm.
Okay. I get the picture.
After getting the name Khan from the costume shop, you go back to Nico, or head to the police station, which also has a phone in it. Or I guess you could even go back to the cafe area again, but you need to phone Todrick, who will send you on your way to Hotel Ubu, and finally really into the middle of the entire mystery. You haven't really been to many places at this point, but Hotel Ubu is the first really stunning area for me personally. Outside, you have a pair of goons who make it hard for George to get in and out of the hotel. As soon as you walk in, you are met with a beautiful piece of piano music. And a small set of characters. You will need to find your way to Khan's room, but you won't get there without the help of the amazing Lady Piedmont. The lobby itself might not be as impressive as some of the areas you will find later in the game, but it is the first time that you really have to get into some mayhem. To get to Khan's room, you'll need a key, and even after you get the key, then you need to get something out of the safe. There are a handful of rooms that you have to navigate and figure out how it all goes together. Lady Piedmont is a study in herself on how absolutely mean George is. The man stands there insulting her in his mind, but never apologizes or even thinks twice about what he's saying when the behemoth of a lady uses all her upper class power to knock down the barriers facing us.
I shouldn't think my feminine charms would be much use in this case, but a good dose of English arrogance might do the trick.
And I guess this is a good place to talk about George. I love George. He might be one of my all-time favorite video game characters at this point, but what I really love more than anything is to hate George. They honestly hit all the worst stereotypes of tourists and just roll with it. He's rude, entitled, he thinks he knows everything. This is half the reason he runs off to find the clown that killed Plantard in the first place. He is also the worst stereotypes of a man as well, with his harsh judgments on women, especially Lady P, but also his insane jealousy when it comes to Nico, which is so odd when they've generally only just met. And yet,
You know, I haven't enjoyed myself this much since Greenham Common.
I don't know what I would have done without you, Lady Piedmont.
and yet,
Hey there, young fella. Speak ye you the English? Speak you the Anglaise? Parlez-vous anglais?
Yes, si, and indeed oui, and rather better than you by the sound of it.
and yet.
Hello. I was wondering whether you could help me.
Why, hi there, handsome. What can I do for you?
Hi, my name's George. I was just...
Well, it certainly is delightful to meet you, George. My name's Mrs. Henderson, but you can call me Pearl, I'm sure.
Okay, Pearl. I was...
So nice to meet a friendly American face so far from home.
Pearl?
Yes, dear?
I was just wondering if you could help me?
Why, sure, precious.
And yet, everyone just loves him.
There's something I've been meaning to say to you, Nico.
Is this the right time and place, Josh?
There might not be another time. I don't want to waste this chance.
You don't need to say anything. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else but here, with you. Now.
He has this charm that just makes the women adore him. Most of the men see through him and call him out on his many poor takes, but the women in the game just seem to fall for the charm. And we, the audience, kind of do as well. There are worse George moments in the series as a whole, and the first game is very tame in comparison to some of the moments in later games, but you just kind of shake your head and go, oh George, and continue on your way. I do want to make a video on the evils of George at some point, so that will be all I say right now, but it really stands out when Lady P selfishly...
So, that deceitful little man is passing himself off as an electrician, is he?
Uh-huh. This guy probably has a million faces.
Helps us in Hotel Ubu. As I said, he never takes back any of his rude observations of the women that he meets, and just happily allows them to fall for his charm and do his bidding. In fact, he never really takes any of his rude comments back, and sure, he doesn't say many to people's faces, but the one word you can really describe George as is just simply rude. There are two other people in the lobby, the man behind the desk who makes our life harder by, checks notes, doing his job, and then a scientist who seems kind of pointless and out of place. Maybe. The goons outside are pretty stereotypical Italian mafia types, but all the characters here play their part. It's just that Lady P has a mountain of personality and is the main focus really in Hotel Ubu.
That's correct, ma'am.
What's the term you Americans use? It's on the tip of my tongue.
I believe what you're thinking of is dick.
Precisely.
I do really enjoy the interactions with Lady P and the guy working in the hotel. I feel sorry for him that the full force of British upper class gets thrown in his face. As for the scientist, one of the cool things about him right now is that when you pick the paper up at the beginning of the game, you actually read about him, and George retains that knowledge and points it out when you actually talk about him. Just little moments like that, again, tie everything together really nicely. Back to the puzzles at hand, and we find out the can uses various names, including Merlin.
Who was the guy who led you on?
His name is Merlin.
We then steal a certain item from him that blows this murder investigation into a whole new level. So, after escaping being in the same room as a mass murderer, we're back at Nichols and get our first look at the Templars manuscript, which really is the centerpiece of much of the rest of the game. It sends us on basically a scavenger's hunt around the world to find out the mysteries of the Templars and what exactly our murderous clown is after. Nico and George are able to slowly figure out some bits and pieces, but they don't have the knowledge to necessarily understand what the manuscript is telling them. The actual manuscript itself is a work of art. I spent so much of my childhood sat here looking at this artwork. There are a few panels on the screen to click on to try and figure out what they mean, but before the entire world gets blown open for you, clown blowing up pun not intended, we have another stop to make. Nico points us in the direction of her friend Andre, an expert on all things Templar, who we can find at the museum. Just, he isn't there at the moment. Who is there though is another wonderful character, and you're gonna get fed up with me saying that, but you could skip on a lot of this guy's dialogue if you didn't know it was there. And that is the museum's guard. The Croon Museum Guard is hilarious. If you click and look at everything on display in the museum and then talk to him about it, he comes up with like really silly stories about it all.
Are remains of pots used by the original inhabitants of Paris. The Paris pot people.
He is, after all, just a guard and not a historian. The stories are wonderfully silly and very worth your time to listen to. It is one of those moments where someone is wasting George's time because George for sure wastes everyone else's times very often. What we can find here, though, is a tripod. The tripod will point us to Ireland. Nico just so happens to have a news article on hand about Professor Pegram and his excavation in Ireland for the tripod, and George finds himself on a plane to visit the dig site. This is another thing I love about Broken Sword. It really is a worldwide mystery. Sure, a lot of it isn't too far from when you start. In this game, from Paris we'll fly to Ireland, Spain, Syria, and then to Scotland, with Syria being the furthest away. But again, it makes the adventure feel grander than a point-and-click should feel. This isn't just a mystery set inside Paris, this is worldwide with an organization that reaches many different places. Ireland, like the other areas, aren't really that huge, but it will live with you forever, trust me on that. We start off outside a bar where we can talk to Maguire, a smart-mouthed kid with a million stories. Inside the bar are a bunch of interesting guys, none of who take George's crap at all.
What? Nasty cold you've got there. As soon as the words left my lips, I regretted them.
Is there such a thing as a cold which isn't nasty?
Up the road is a farmer looking after his hay bales right outside the dig site. He also won't take George's crap, but we'll deal with him later. All three of the countries you go to, and you'll see why I don't include Scotland in this later, have their own charm. In Ireland, it is the bar. The two guys at the bar are just fun to listen to. You have the guy in the corner sneezing constantly, and the barkeeper is amazing.
Top of the morning to you.
I beg your pardon.
Well, that's what you Irish say, isn't it?
Do you want something? Or are you just flaunting your xenophobia?
Well, I was trying to be sociable.
Not only this, but like Hotel Ubu, it has the wonderful background music of a fiddler in the corner who just never stops. None of the barflies take anything George says seriously, and it is a breath of fresh air just to have a bunch of cheerful yet cynical friends to talk to.
Oh no, I'm here on vacation. What's that?
The vacation part. It's what the Americans call a holiday.
Oh, right. In Lochmarn? You come to Lochmarn for a holiday? Sure, it's a very pretty place. Where the hell are you from, mister? California.
This isn't really why Ireland will stick with you, though. We'll be at the scene of a crime, kind of, when a pixie runs a man over and kidnaps him.
Jesus, says I thought he was a goner. Next thing, the driver hops out, and I couldn't believe my eyes.
We set up a flooding of a basement. And all sorts of other shenanigans, but it is this buggy here that will stick with you forever. The GOAT. The true antagonist of Broken Sword. This little git has been knocking players over again, and again, and again, and again since the game's launch. It is often cited as one of the hardest or even impossible point-and-click puzzles, and to this day stands as a true roadblock of progression for many. It isn't even necessarily moon logic. You won't be finding any hints here how to beat the little bastard, but the game just wants you to think about things in a way they haven't presented it to you yet. Once he is bested though, then you can make your way into the dig site proper, where we find our next clue, a banner pointing us to Montfaucon. I feel like I'm doing Ireland an injustice by making it feel so short, as the first flyaway area, it stands out really well, and whilst a lot of people will forever remember the GOAT, the fun you'll have talking to a Brian or being sassed by the bartender will go unmatched. There is so much sarcasm in the air in Ireland that it cuts deeply. Every character is sharp-witted, and it's like they know they are face-to-face with an adventure game protag and just can't be bothered with his ridiculousness. I feel it also in itself serves as a tutorial for you to get to know how these flyaway areas will actually be. They are all a few interlocking screens with all the puzzles solvable within the small area you are given. There won't be lots of flying back and forth, you just set up shop in area whatever and get on with it. They come with their own unique sets, characters, and stories, and other than Spain, pretty much finish within one flying visit. After we're done upsetting the locals in Ireland, though, we end up back at Nichols before having to actually track down Andre at the museum to get his help finding out about Montfaucon. Instantly, we hate him for no real reason, or at least George does, and I feel in Broken Sword 1, he wasn't really that bad of a character. The hate mainly comes from George just being judgmental to everyone in the game, but also because he's a rival in the race to Nichols' heart, apparently. A lot of the characteristics that George puts on him verbally in the first game kind of get added to him in later games, and whilst he does swagger a little, and he's obviously very interested in beautiful women, he is just as bad as George in that respect. It really isn't till later games that a more icky side of Andre can be seen, and I feel like they added that to make George correct, rather than Andre starting out that way in the first game. He feels like more of a stereotypical Frenchman, but he also doesn't really say or do anything weirder than George actually does.
The anonymous girlfriend.
Do you have a boyfriend?
That's none of your business.
After a conversation with him, we do decide he's a pervert though. Yeah, we still give Nichols' address to him, so yeah, nice one, George. We get a nice little lore dump here from Andre, who really does know his stuff on Templars. Mainly, it is the story of how King Philip IV of France had it in for the Templars and how he put his own pope in charge of the church just to get his hands on the Templars' wealth so he could go to war with the English. Hail as old as time, hey? French versus the English? He tells us that people believe because a mass attempt to arrest the Templars happened on Friday, October 13th, 1307, this is where the superstition came from about Friday the 13th. And whilst this is a popular theory, it doesn't seem to hold much water, but it is a nice little nod to a genuine origin myth to Friday the 13th. Andre also tells us how the Templars were sent to the Inquisition for a nice cup of tea.
But they didn't have to agree.
The records show a Templar coming to trial with both feet burnt off. Fragments of flesh and charred bone falling from the stumps.
Or that, probably more that. It is fascinating listening to Andre talk about the Templars. The game doesn't make it boring to listen to, and the voice actor is perfect for the part. If you had never heard of the Templars, the 5 or so minutes you'll spend talking to Andre will open your eyes to their history. Your map probably looks a little empty, so head to the police station, which Nico did tell you to go to after coming back from Ireland, and talk to Moo, who will point you in the direction of the hospital.
I heard he's been hospitalized, probably by one of his rivals.
Which is our next destination.
The old building managed to retain some of its original grandeur, but the modern additions look like a baseball cap on a statue of a medieval saint.
The hospital is a very fun one. You have 3 main areas to the hospital, and they all look very different, from the greenhouse of the reception to the long, clean corridors that we wander down to the ward itself. It is also full of fun people to interact with. We're here to see Marquet.
Why was Marquet known as the Mole of Montmartre?
Because he lived in Montmartre, I suppose.
Yeah, but why the mole?
I don't know. Maybe he ruined people's lawns.
So not only do you have to figure out how to see him, first of all, you have to figure out how to get to the ward. I really kind of like this. It is a twist on the annoying labyrinths in adventure games where you need to actually know the directions to the ward, else you just end up back in the lobby. There are some fun little puzzles in this area as well that might leave you scratching your head for a little bit. In the lobby, you have a receptionist, who is pretty much the norm for receptionists. She's chatty and a little gossipy.
If Nurse Grendel is that bad, how come the authorities tolerate her?
She's like part of the furniture.
Oh, you mean she's been here a long time?
No, I mean there's not a man in this clinic who hasn't sprawled out on her.
I was beginning to get the picture. This woman was jealous, with a big green capital J.
But she'll point you in the direction you need to go after you've figured out how to get her to tell you that information. We also have Benoit, a budding doctor pacing the lobby, and the owner of the hospital just stood looking proud of himself.
Excuse me, sir.
You must be the new boy.
Yeah, I must be.
Well, stop wandering about and make yourself useful. Bernie, come here, boy. This is Benoit, my nephew. Can I trust you to look after him?
Do your own babysitting, Gramps. Who do you think you are, anyhow?
I am Felix Hagenmeyer.
And may I say what an honor it is to meet you in person, sir. You are on my medical wall of fame. Right up there with Pasteur and Leary.
When you hit the corridors, you meet a funny little man who is best friends with Mr. Shiny, his cleaning machine. Just don't call his machine a machine.
Would Mr. Shiny be your polishing machine by any chance?
Please, don't call him that. He's more of a friend than a machine.
Again, this is a fun little puzzle and a really silly little character that I really enjoy interacting with. Even on my 100th playthrough, when I know the answer to the puzzle so I can skip him, I will still talk to him. Then you get to the ward, and we have the nurse the receptionist talked about like she was a mini dictator.
What's so bad about Nurse Grendel?
She runs that ward like a South American prison.
Keeping a well-disciplined ward isn't a crime, is it?
Well disciplined. In the discipline and punishment stakes, she'd whip the butt off the Marquis de Sade.
But all she really wants is a tightly run ward. We meet a man who is 100% a hypochondriac, and who needs the concept of blinking explained to him.
I know exactly what you mean. It's known in the medical field as blinking.
Is it serious?
And then another man who we failed to take the blood pressure of.
Seems fine to me.
You're not doing it right.
I will admit, I feel like I just keep stopping to say how much I love the characters in this, but they are just fun to talk to. Completing all their dialogue options, asking them about all the items, and just seeing what else you can squeeze out of them is a joy. And there's always something Monty Python-esque about this scene to me, and I don't know why. But by the time you finished impersonating a doctor and learning how not to take blood pressure, we'll need to talk to Marquet, who is in the private room, so just like Hotel Ubu, you have to keep on moving till you finally get into the room. This is where we learn of the Assassins. And yes, I'm not just saying assassin wrong. Assassins are just an older order of assassins, and I bet you can guess what makeup, costume-wearing fiend might just so happen to be one of them. This brings Syria to the table as Klausner is off to Syria and Marquet is certain that Khan would have gone after him. We get kicked out of the room and bad things happen, but suddenly we're back to Nicho's apartment. And a quick side note here on the use of sound once again. Very often Broken Sword uses silence and ambient noises to really hone in on that real world feel. You'll be able to hear birds chattering away to themselves or the traffic in the distance. In the hospital, the beeping of Marquet's machine brings a lot of drama to an otherwise pretty calm scene.
Are you sure he was a doctor?
Oui, monsieur. He showed me his ID. It was Dr. Braille.
There's no Dr. Braille working here.
He's an imposter!
Another editor's note here. I've only just realized somehow Benoit was able to instantly tell you that the doctor wasn't a real doctor in the hospital.
There's no Dr. Braille working here.
Yet at no point did anyone ask for George's credentials or figure out that this random American was not meant to be where he is. This is a plot hole that I've once again never pondered, or at least forgotten that I have ever pondered it. Surely at some point someone should have been able to tell that George was very out of place. Is George Superman or something? One white coat and the hospital just believe they have a random American doctor without checking any ID, when the guard at the door obviously asked for the other fake doctor's ID before he went in. Sus, I tell you, sus. Also, just a quick note, I currently have a cold, so if I sound a little different in this editor's note, or in fact in any other added parts, you'll probably be able to tell. I am going to finish this video even through the ick, but right now, back to past me. You can tell something is going wrong as he slowly flatlines, and you don't need to be in the room with him to feel the sense of dread. Just having a calm conversation outside with the other characters and hearing it slowly flatline is enough to build that tension that things are going wrong. Our conversation with Nico was brief, and we can now go back to Andre, who will give us an explanation of the assassins, and then we can warn him about a potential theft of the tripod on display. He's also found the owner of one of the crests you've shown him, which opens up Spain. At this point, you can just also steal the tripod.
Likely to shoot their own feet.
I just wish you'd told me your plans. We're supposed to be...
I can't sit here all day, much as I'd like to.
Okay. Don't forget to look for Lobino at the Krun Museum. And why don't you see if Rosso has heard anything?
Okay. Anything else I can do for you while I'm out? Shopping, a trip to the laundromat?
Just take care of yourself.
In this together. And how come you dressed up like a pantomime cat?
Don't sulk, Georgie, please.
Oh, rats. And don't call me Georgie.
I won't tell you how, but it is now time for you to go to Mount Fashon. Mount Fashon has one of the most impressive designs in the game. You'll start in the square outside the church. You can talk to the gendarme, who instead of directing traffic is just sat sipping some wine watching a jungler. He's a pretty fun character to have a chat with. Sadly, George is just outright rude to the jungler, to the point that he tries to juggle to prove that anyone could. And then fails. Spectacularly. This is a wonderful moment where George's attitude bites him in the backside. Not for too long, but long enough that it's worth watching as many times as you can before you figure out the puzzle. After upsetting Chuckles over here, you can return to sewer-based shenanigans, but let's have another side note quickly. This game is wonderful at making everything feel natural. Whilst sure, all the characters do stay in the same place day in, day out, and we know it is happening over days because we talk about staying overnight in Ireland, and we witness a nighttime during the heist. Even with that being said, it still feels natural having people doing what they are doing. Nico is sat working away at something. The doctors in the lobby are wandering around. The guard in the museum is patrolling everywhere. Everyone's idle animations are interesting and fun, and along with a slew of other small details like the birds flying across the screen, traffic in the background, and the use of just world noises as I've talked about at times, instead of the music, it makes the game feel real instead of just a game. This crowd watching the jungler is the absolute opposite of that. They stand statically watching him with small animations to applaud him and laugh at us, but when he leaves, they just stand there forevermore just staring at nothing. Okay, I guess an editor's note here. After going through my VODs and cutting them up, I realized later in the game the crowd does actually disappear, and I guess after the jungler has left, it might just be until you hit the other countries that they stand around. I still would prefer to see them leaving after their entertainment had left, or having some more life in them, but I was wrong that they stand there forevermore. They just stand there for a little extra longer. It really isn't that big of a deal, and I'm being really nitpicky, but it isn't like the jungler and the police officer both don't leave, so having the crowd leave felt like something they could have done. It is a really small detail, but when the game goes to great lengths to make things feel natural, having this crowd of random tourists just stand and stare at nothing for eternity is pretty jarring. Okay, I'm gonna edit my editor's notes because this bit didn't make sense when I actually looked at it. For some reason, when I play this game, and even when I was clipping my VODs, this crowd looked dead. To be fair on them, they actually do move a little. The head bobs, the balloon, the eyebrows, and the kid even licks his lollipop. Heck, they even cheer more than I thought they did. I still stand by what I said though. There is something about them that sucks the reality out of this area for me, and in some ways it is made even worse by the fact that they are moving, and yet feel so static. I'm done whining about them though, I promise. I'll stop whining, maybe. No more whining about the crowd. I am also aware I said this is one of the most impressive designs in the game, but I won't actually be talking about why right now, because we're going down to sewer number 2 under the dead-eyed stares of the tourists. After a small puzzle, we'll end up spying on the Neo-Templars and their plots. We see that they've been sowing discontent silently in the world, and a few faces are actually recognizable to us, including the scientist from Hotel Ubu and the fake doctor from the hospital. They are after the broken sword, and this scene goes on for a little bit, giving you some nice lore dumping on their plans. But after that cutscene, you can pop down to the area they were in. We open up Marib in Syria, and the game is now wary afoot for George. To be honest, this entire part of the game could be done in any way you want. If you head to the police station first, you can go straight to the hospital. That just means you have an even longer conversation with Andre because you haven't split them up. You can also pick whether to go to Syria or Spain after the fact as well. It isn't really important which you do first, as you'll only be really paying a flying visit to Nico in between both areas, unless you plan on walking around talking to people and seeing if there are any new interesting dialogue options. Personally, I like leaving Syria to last, so we'll go to Spain first. Our big, charming feature of Spain is the story, and it is one that will tug at your heartstrings. Of all the places you go, Spain feels the smallest, but it packs the biggest punch. You are visiting a countess, or I should say barging into her house without invitation. This means you are only in the grounds of her manor, with a similar amount of screens to Ireland, but feeling much more compact and personal. Before I go into this though, look at how beautiful the watering hole effect is. The rainbow inside it. As a kid, this blew my mind, and as an adult, it still blows my mind. Our story here, though, is a lonely countess who has a mystery of her own thanks to the Templars that has haunted her family for centuries.
The Templars ceased to exist centuries ago, and as for the Vasconcelos, the line dies with me.
I'm sorry.
Don't be.
Whilst we have to trick our way to get an audience with her, when we do, we instantly see the pain of her story. Imagine having the weight of centuries on your shoulders. She hasn't got any kids, and this is the last of the line, and still a 700-year-old mystery haunts her. For a woman who is a random American barge into her home...
Why should I believe a complete stranger who barges into my home?
Just let me have a look around. If I find nothing...
You'll be spending the night at the police station. Very well. Please, sit down.
Thank you.
The Countess is very forgiving and extremely open with her histories. Up until this part, we were looking at this mystery from a very outside perspective, but now we're brought into it personally, and whilst the puzzle in Spain aren't overly complicated, and a lot of it is kinda humorous, with Lopez an obsession with feeding George to the dogs.
You? Why, I'll feed you to the dogs.
Lopez, what have I told you about feeding intruders to the dogs?
But, my lady...
Never without my permission.
It stays with you just for seeing the good that George manages to do. After a chess puzzle in an old mausoleum situated on the grounds, because of course there would be a chess puzzle in an adventure game, we find a hidden chalice. So, obviously, we take it with us and go back to Paris, where Nico is jealous of the Countess.
You have got the odds for a withered old Spanish aristocrat?
The romance of Nico and George is a weird one that takes many weird twists and turns. I don't necessarily buy it fully.
Do you have a boyfriend?
They barely know each other, and even though there are a few days passing in between all this, it just feels forced. The jealousy that George has is ridiculous when aimed at Andre. The little fire from Nico to the Countess was really uncalled for. Later in the game, we even get a weird moment where, while she's tied up, George will just take advantage of Nico and kiss her in one of those old-fashioned action movie moments that really are very questionable nowadays.
No.
You took advantage while my hands were tied.
That being said, we're already on the trail of a murderer and Templars, and now George has added something else to their plate. And whilst we as an audience have that personal connection to this story, just like George has, Nico doesn't have it. She didn't meet the Countess or hear her story. She just knows that the job they've got in front of them has now grown for no real reason. That being said, as George is very happy to take shots at Nico over just about anything.
I got his tailor's phone number.
You had better luck than I did.
Luck, she said. Luck! Hard work, I'd call it.
I'll allow her these few warning shots back. This is also the time in the game where you can head back to the police station and get one of the saddest and interesting moments that can be completely missed. If you talk to the new officer on the desk, he'll tell you that Mo has actually passed away.
Heard what? Has something happened to him?
Mo is dead.
This is something that doesn't add anything to the plot. We don't need to know about Mo, honestly. We don't really get a reason why he's died, but it is a small moment that you can miss if you don't go looking for it. A sad moment as well, that just adds depth to the world. On a replay though, it might add more mystery, you'll have to wait and see. But it really is a flying visit, because now we have to head to Syria, and oh boy, does Syria hold its head high in the ranking of best areas in the game. Syria is all about the weird and the wonderful, mainly the weird and wonderful cast. So yeah, it's similar to Ireland, but in a different way. Ireland feels like you are getting to know a small community and digging into something bothering them. Again, pun may be attended this time.
Have you served any, clowns recently?
No. You're the first today.
Syria is just full of the larger-than-life characters you are used to seeing in other games. It's kind of where they let the genre bleed in. The locals are all super fun, from the kid selling antiques to the gentleman in the bar, and then there is Pearl and Dwayne.
It was a guess, but I figured the woman to be an American tourist. Just call me Sherlock.
Pearl and Dwayne are my life.
Why, sure, son. Always got time for a fellow American. The name's Henderson. Dwayne Henderson.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Henderson.
They are fellow American tourists with some funny backstory. First up, just let me say, George identifying them as American tourists in the rudest way is the most stereotypical American tourist thing to do.
Embarrassed as I am to admit it, you can spot an American tourist a mile off.
What is your name, Shirley?
George Stobart, ma'am.
Oh, American.
She asked the question quite innocently, but I could sense her reserve. It was something which seemed to afflict all Europeans.
First, I like to talk to Pearl, who tells us that they run a greeting cards business. But Dwayne has other ideas, and he might or might not be a spy.
You said that your company is based in Akron.
And Dwayne said it's in Cleveland, no doubt.
Well, yes, he did.
Dwayne was in the Marines and Vietnam, you know. Anyway, he got a medical discharge. Thing is, he gets confused. We moved away from Cleveland 5 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean...
He also gets a little paranoid. Thinks he's a spy or something.
I'm so sorry, Pearl.
Don't worry yourself, George. We live with it.
Their dialogue is fantastic, and they kind of adopt George instantly as their own child. They are semi-integral to the Syria plot, as Pearl wants an antique, but she also wants to go to some tourist spots, and we find out we need to get out to a spot outside the city. Hand on my heart, I just adore these two. They are my favorite characters in the entire series, and the banter they have with George is amazing. The fact you find another set of American tourists is just kind of funny to me as well for some reason. Just in the middle of Syria, you find these two tourists being very touristy in the most stereotypical American tourist way. Another editor's note here. Again, it is something I just picked up as I was going through the clips and stuff, but I forgot that whilst overall, I do still think Pearl and Dwayne take a liking to George. The entire "who is Dwayne" question really hits home with some of his very short answers to George.
Do you mind if I ask you an odd question?
Okay, but I might not answer it.
Do you know anything about the Templars?
The Knights Templar?
Yep.
Nope. Nothing at all.
Well, you knew they were an order of knights.
What I know and what I say are two different things, boy. I haven't lasted as long as I have in this business without knowing that.
In this business?
Sure. The greetings card business.
Oh, please.
Honestly, I find it a fun way of changing up the way someone has reacted to George as well. Dwayne does this whole, I might know things, but I can't tell you shtick really, really well. But honestly, a lot of his answers are deserving of the questions that were asked. George has no second thoughts about running up to strangers and asking them 100 questions about really out there things like Templars and how they feel about random grease rags he's had in his pocket for days. And Dwayne spends a lot of his time answering like a man telling his son that maybe you shouldn't just ask a man randomly what they know about the Templars.
What do you think of that?
I think you should be in therapy.
Though, maybe we need a how often do you think about the Templars meme with George? But yeah, I just wanted to add because I think I mentioned once about Dwayne's reaction to George showing him the photo later on, but Dwayne's reactions to George in this part of the game are just fantastic. It doesn't go against what I'm saying, they instantly do just love George, even if it is just out of national pride, and it is meant to play a part in Dwayne's own mystery or whether or not he's a spy, but I noticed it, so I must talk about it. That isn't to say they are the only good things about this area. Everyone here, as I said, is larger than life. In fact, think of the Clutch area in Discworld. Okay, this one isn't even an editor's note. This is Zombie Kuma coming back from the dead and on camera to apologize personally. I wrote the script when I was fine and I made a boo-boo, one that no Discworld fan ever should. It isn't Clutch you go to in Discworld 2, it's actually Jelly Baby. And you know what? Through multiple rewrites of the script, I never thought about it, but the first time I properly heard myself say it out loud, I knew I was wrong. So I apologize and hand back my Discworld fan card. I am a failure. I am also now a zombie thanks to man flu. I'm sorry I let everyone down. Will you ever be able to forgive me? Probably not. Not to worry. I'll make a Discord retrospect one day and tell you all that Broken Sword was set in Australia or something. Now, back to being a zombie and more wrong facts I'm apparently just making up in my head. Also, I could have just re-recorded the lines, honestly, and no one would ever know I made a mistake. Why did I make this into a bit? I don't know. Back to me. It borders on being a little offensive at times, especially with the kebab seller, who not only doesn't really speak much English other than to sell his kebabs,
Buy kebab. Most good.
but who both is using a toilet brush on the kebabs, as well as tries to kill us the moment we insult him and his kebabs.
Il akul kalb?
Filthy. Bad. I kill you.
Whoa, calm down. Feet, do your thing.
Like, this came out in the 90s, guys, and you have to kind of look at it with that 90s lens on it as well. That being said, the cab driver is just fantastic, and he makes me giggle as there is an underlying feeling that he and even the kid at the store are kind of just taking the piss out of George, especially as George is bumbling away being kind of insensitive and rude, as you'd imagine he would be by now.
I still don't have any cash on me, American or otherwise.
Oh, unfortunate. Most extreme.
I'll always say that it is worth indulging in every area you go in. If you just look for the puzzle and the way out of any situation, then you are missing a wealth of fun all over the place. It is a very dialogue-heavy game, but most of it is just conversations with people who come face to face with a clueless himbo who suddenly thinks he's Sherlock Holmes or something. In fact, showing Khan's picture to Dwayne leaves Dwayne with the comeback, "Do you always show pictures of strangers to people? Here, I'll take one of you and show it to random people. It's perfect."
Sure. I'm always picking up photos of complete strangers and then asking around.
Ow, damn it.
There. I've got another picture of a complete stranger. Maybe I'll ask around about this one.
Next up, though, we've got some genuine toilet business, and then we'll be Indiana Jonesing it and coming face to face with Khan. Honestly, this is a wonderful climax to everything that has come before, and one of the reasons I tend to leave Syria squashed between what turns into 2 trips to Spain. It feels much more bombastic than the others, and leaves you stood on a cliff edge facing an assassin. Syria feels bigger than the other places because of its ending. It's dramatic and explosive, and everything that came before it was so full of life and silliness.
Ultar! Don't come in! It's a trap! Stay where you are!
You!
Hello, Mr. Stobart. We meet in the most unusual places.
If you do survive your 2 or 3 near-death experiences, then you'll be back in Paris with more information. Right now, though, we have to head back to Mount Fauchon, where the Gondomere is back, and he will tell you that you've started an urban legend called Sewer Jacques.
You must have heard, monsieur, of the terror that is gripping Paris.
You mean the killings? Oh, at last, someone's taken action.
People die every day. No, I am on the trail of Sewer Jacques.
A fitting legend for a man still walking around with a sewer key in his jacket pocket. It is nice to know that George will leave a mark on Paris long after he's left. A very smelly mark at that.
Oh, that's disgusting, George.
But now you get to see the impressiveness of this area as we enter the church. Now, you might have come in here before and found nothing to do, but now there is a priest in here cleaning something in his hand. As long as you're talking to everyone about everything like the game really wants you to do, nothing here is too hard to figure out, and soon you'll have finished and gotten your next big part of the clue. The church is one of the most beautiful areas of the game. It has huge windows, including a stained glass one. There's some tombs and a beautiful statue in the middle. I love how wonderful the stained glass window looks. There's a hidden image within the window as well, which I find fascinating, and is one of the areas I'm looking forward to seeing in the Reforge when it comes out. I hope to see them able to keep the grandeur of the area, but hopefully make the subtle stained glass pop a little more. We also find the lost D. Vasconcelos, which is hard for me to say. He was staring us in the face all along. Entombed in the church, you finally have some answers that the Countess really needed. At some point, you'll have to talk to Andre, who will tell you about another dig site. This time in Paris itself, so no long distance traveling, and you can make your way there now if you want. It is funny to me that this area of the game I always kind of forget. Every time I play it, I feel I'm discovering it once more for the first time. It isn't even that it isn't that long or anything. Compared to the juggler antics and the sewer moments and a bunch of other things, it's just as long. But even writing this, I had to go back and look at my recordings because I totally forgot it happened. Our objective is to get into the dig site. We have a surly worker outside on a cigarette break and a guard doing his job guarding a door. There's also another toilet that isn't as impressive as the last one we found ourselves in, but beggars can't be choosers, as the saying goes. As I said, there's no real reason for me to forget this area. It actually has one of the more interesting puzzles in it, because for the first time, we're actually going to be using the phones for the puzzle, and I really like that. I love the fact at the beginning of the game, you had to use the phone all the time, and you were whipping out the envelope full of names and numbers. It sadly goes away in the middle, we're just jet-setting off around the world to different countries took over, but having it back here is really fun. It also gives us some really funny moments with the two characters as the, in his own eyes, very sexy builder who rivals those from the old Coke adverts, tries to charm Nico.
Well, she asked for that hunk of a man with the nicotine fingers and his ass hanging out of his pants.
Certainly sounds like me. Stand back. It wouldn't do to keep the lady from her hunk.
All in all, it is really tightly and well done set of puzzles, but I'm sure by the 19th, I'll have forgotten it again. After starting a fight...
This looked like a good place to watch things develop.
Hey, you! It's the phone.
Yeah? Who is it?
How should I know? What am I, your social secretary?
We come face to face with another idol of Bahamut and the hint of yet another church. Before we go church hunting with the cows...
There's a cow here. Did the cow also go to church? Huh.
We have another quick trip to see the Countess. We don't just have to bring back the chalice that we took, but to tell her that we found the grave of Don Carlo. It also has a really sweet moment where both Lopez and George apologize to each other.
Senior Stobart, I feel I owe you an apology.
No, you don't.
I was impolite on our first meeting.
Look, Lopez, just forget about it. I came on like a snake oil merchant. I wouldn't have trusted me in your shoes.
You do not understand. Finding the chalice has given my lady a new lease of life. It's a marvel. She smiles, she laughs. The tradesmen are saying that she is on Prozac.
Again, the personal aspect of the story is the best part. Lopez was doing his best to protect the Countess, and George was so determined to find the answer to this mystery that he just barged right in. That being said, George's stubbornness meant that the story of Don Carlos was able to be completed, and now the Countess has a new leash on life. It's a very grown-up moment where both men admit they are wrong, but I still hold that honestly, Lopez did nothing wrong. George genuinely ended up home invading, and Lopez was just protecting his master the best he could. But nice to see them apologizing and being adult about it. This will also be the only time that George apologizes for anything or acts like an adult about anything.
Of course. My apologies.
He started it.
We don't stop there, though. There are missing children also in her past, and our return to Spain has us digging up an old well to find those missing children. I really like this puzzle, and again, I say this a lot because I just love this game, but I do love this puzzle. It really isn't even a puzzle, just this moment in general. Lopez tells George to grab a Y-shaped hazel branch to search for a well. He thinks he's found something, but it ends up just being an old tin can with some water in it. And then, when Lopez throws it away, they accidentally find the well they were looking for, totally uncovered, just in part of the garden no one apparently has ever gone in. It just makes me laugh every time because you see this friendship that Lopez and George suddenly have, but it's also just another twist on an old classic adventure game trope. Very often you'd be looking for water the way George is doing, and there's this lovely montage of scenes watching as Lopez just enjoys his day, whilst George wanders around aimlessly with this bit of wood in his hands. In the end, though, it's just Lopez chucking something in the garden that finds the well. This visit is just a perfect ending for Spain, though, solving all the mysteries of the De Vasconcelos and helping put the Countess family's history to an end.
Before I left, though, there was one last thing to do. You won't be needing that replacement piece anymore, Countess. I found it with the children. You'll probably want to be alone for a while. I'll be out in the garden with Lopez.
As I said, out of all the places that you visit and all the stories you hear, it'll be the Countess that will time and time again tug at the heartstrings. It is also the one really decent part of George's character that he did take on her struggles, and if he could figure out what happened, then he'd give it his all to do so. We're on the final leg of our adventure though, guys, and we have one final trip to Paris. This trip to Paris though starts off with the most childish back and forth between George and Andre, and it's moments like this that just show the pettiness of George. None of this mystery or adventure had anything to do with George in the first place. He shoved his big nose in and dragged multiple people into it as well, and when they aren't as impressed as he wanted them to be, or share some of the plaudits for getting to where they are, he gets a little nasty. The conversation where he has to point out how many times he put himself in danger completely ignores the fact that a lot of the information he got came from Nick or Andre in the first place. Nickel calms the situation down, and again, this is something I want to talk about in future videos, but it is a good look at just who George really is.
And finally we have the tapestry in Spain. Did I mention I almost got killed there?
Not yet, but I'm sure you're about to.
It was only my cat-like reflexes that saved me from certain death.
Cat-like reflexes, eh?
And while I was risking life and limb, where were you, Andre? Getting your glasses fogged up over an Etruscan vase?
That's enough, boys. Can we get back to saving the world?
Together, we put our brains together to find out our last point of interest is Bannockburn in Scotland. Bannockburn. probably more like Bannockburn than whatever I said. Andre doesn't want to join, which again just gives George a snarky reaction, but once more, Andre is shoved into this mystery just for his brains, and it isn't really a negative on him that he doesn't want to chase after a psycho killer or Templars trying to destroy the world. Yeah, sure, someone needs to save the world, but Andre never signed up to do that. He's just a nerd out there to tell us about the Templars.
Are you Andre Lobineau?
That's me. You want my autograph?
No, I was told you may be able to help me.
Help?
My name is George Stobart. I'd like your professional opinion.
Well, okay, shoot.
So off to Scotland go Nico and George. Now, earlier I said I didn't put Scotland in the same category as the other places we go to, and there is a good reason for this. We start off just in a train. The train section is probably the best part of the ending of the game in my opinion. Like the ending of Syria, it is a pretty high-octane moment, similar to something you'd see in Indiana Jones, which sees a coming together of all the players so far. We get to talk to Nico and some strange old lady in our train compartment. The ticket inspector seems familiar, but we don't really know why.
I don't want to worry you, but there was something familiar about that guy.
Are you sure? You're tired. Perhaps you're mistaken.
Maybe. But I didn't like the look in his eyes when he spoke to you.
There is some slight flirting between Nico and George, then this really rude moment where George gets up to go to the toilet.
Where are you going, George?
Do I need to spell it out?
Don't snap at me. If you're going to take a leak, why don't you say so?
Okay, I'm going to take a leak. L-E-A-K.
Tickets, please.
Oh, hi.
The old lady doesn't have much to say, but she's interesting enough, reading a pilgrim book as well. Foreshadowing, I guess.
I assumed the author was a woman, but apparently not. His real name is...
Professor Nigel Pilgrim.
That's right. Do you know him?
No, I never met him.
George is a great fan of his, though.
The next carriage over has some Newcastle fans that have missed their stop because they're too drunk. Talking to them is really just a delight, but understanding what they are saying is another thing altogether.
Hi, having a party?
No, this is British. Come on, join us, man. Where, Basha, wake up, man. What's company?
We find the goons are on the train before realizing our mistake and running back to find Nico has gone.
I should have known better than to leave Nico and the old lady alone. Suddenly, the Sword of Baphomet took second place to finding the girl I loved.
It's a very short sequence of events, but there is a lot of fun moments to it. Soon you are getting your action face on again to go save the girl. This is also kind of the end of Khan though. He semi-saves the day, and we have a moment where we seem to totally forget he tried to kill us in Syria, and indeed accidentally tried to kill us to begin this whole thing. But he wants us to finish where he started and to stop the Templars. Khan throughout the game was fantastic. I feel his ending was real sad though. He had been our main antagonist even with the introduction of the Templars. The Templars so far hadn't really done anything to us, and just because Khan was killing to stop their plan didn't mean that time and time again we came face to face with him and nearly died. I'd have liked to have seen more of a redemption and a friendship actually grow, but I get that it is the end of the game and it works well enough for an emotional gut punch. Oh yeah, and this is where George casually just kisses Nico without her consent before untying her, but never mind, and we're off to a church somewhere in Scotland. We're trying to get into a secret Templar base, and the puzzles to get it isn't all that really. For the final real puzzle of the game, the only thing that will stump you is for the first time in the game, you have to click the same point time and time again to get all the items you need. But when you have the items, putting them together and figuring out how to open the door isn't really that hard. One final cutscene later, and a big bang we cause this time, and we're game over. George and Nico survive, the Templars have been thwarted, and George gets a consensual kiss from Nico this time. If this all feels rushed, then there are two reasons for that. One is I don't want to give too much away, but secondly, it actually just feels rushed if I'm honest. A lot of the appeal of the game to me comes from everything but the end. The end just isn't that much. As I said, the final puzzle of the game is pretty easy to figure out. The explanation of what is happening and the rest of it doesn't really live up to the rest of the game, and then it just kind of ends. The credits, if you sit through them like I always do, hints at George and Nickel having more adventures, but that is kind of it. The mystery just ends because we blew a bunch of people up, and you have a hilarious moment seeing one of the goons try to blow out the explosives. It isn't a terrible ending, and it isn't something that makes the game not worth your time, but for me personally, it fell a little flat. And that is it. You are done. You prevented the Templars from enacting their evil deeds, found the killer clown, saved the world, and the girl. Broken sword, baby! The story of Broken Sword is a timeless classic in my opinion, and one of the reasons it works is that it has something for everyone. It reels you in with the big murder mystery, walks you through a history lesson, but also has that human element to it. It never treats you like you should know everything about the Templars, but it also doesn't treat you like you're dumb. George is a great protagonist for this, as whilst he isn't a history buff, he is a lawyer actually, so things like Latin inscriptions he can translate for us. It isn't just people filling in the blanks for us, our character also knows how to fill in some of them for himself. You never feel dumb for not having knowledge of Templar lore. George also never feels dumb for not knowing the lore. None of the puzzles want you to have gone to uni and studied these subjects, so you can just coast along and let the story wash over you. Now comes the time though where we have to talk about the gameplay, or at least all the other parts of the game that aren't the story. I really love how Broken Sword plays. I came, as I keep saying, from LucasArts games, which use a verbiage system. You know, the little box in the bottom of the screen that would make you press the word before clicking on things. Broken Sword doesn't have that. To be fair, that was already on its way out anyway, and a more streamlined point-and-click standard was being used. Even the classic Curse of Monkey Island that came out a year later wasn't using the verbiage system. It is as simple as left-clicking the mouse to use items and right-clicking to examine them. It is all you need to do, really. The little cursor will change depending on what action you can do with any given hotspot. It has the normal use, speak, or pick up actions, but it's all automated for you. For me, that simplicity really helps stop the game ever feeling like it is purely a game. Pixel hunting isn't too much of a big deal, because a wave of the screen will likely ping the cursor to change, and you'll find what you need. The game didn't try to be clever or funny or make a puzzle out the way you use things, other than maybe the goat puzzle. So there wasn't a group of verbs that all basically do the same thing, or are completely useless, other than that one puzzle where use isn't good enough anymore. Now you have to press where, even though you've never had to do it before. Yes, Simon, I'm still angry at you, but you are for a whole bunch of videos to yourself, my friend. That isn't to say I dislike the verbiage system or anything like that. It adds a different layer to the puzzle building and could be well used as well, but very often it wasn't well used, and Cubme was sick of it by then, and I was only a baby back then. I also feel it is another reason why it ends up being a timeless classic. It never gets you bogged down in trying to figure out what the game creator thought you had to do, because the game creators just outright tell you what they think you should do. This item over here, you need to use it, so just use it. If this item over here has the pickup option, then it's obviously something you've got to pick up. You know, it never tries to make anything too complicated. This is also very prominent in the inventory items and how they are used. The inventory is easily accessed at all times just by hovering your cursor at the top of the screen. It is also always available during conversations with people. This instantly makes you aware that you need to talk to characters about every item, as I've talked about before, constantly. And the unique dialogue given to nearly every character when faced with every item doesn't make it a chore like in every other game, where you have to listen to the same reply 10 or 20 times in a row. You also don't get any red herrings in the game either. Everything has a use, and whilst most items stick around long after you need them, you never feel bogged down with too much in your inventory. There are a few inventory-based puzzles. Combining items isn't really that much of a thing, and it is used sparingly throughout the game. Very often the items are there to move on the plot in a more natural way, by giving them to people, or at least showing them to people so that they can point you in the right direction. I probably said it a lot and will continue to say it, but it all just feels very natural. It never feels like the game asks you to think like a cartoon character or come up with some silly plot. You have a 700-year-old chalice and come face to face with a guy polishing something in the church. It just makes natural sense to ask him about the chalice. Even when you are using the items in the outside world, again, they feel natural. You have something on the wall in the shape of the indentations on the floor, or it just so happens that you have some plaster of Paris in your pocket. For whatever reason, George has that in there. So just throw that down on the floor. There isn't too much moon logic or silly things going on in the game. Pretty much anything can be figured out just by listening to what George has to say, or what another character might have to say. You can then go down the route of using everything with everything, but you very rarely need to, and if you do, you can logic out the items that probably aren't going to be helpful. Again, the one exception to that is the goat, but even that isn't really moon logic. It is just the game wanting you to think outside the box with the context clues it gives you. I've always highly recommended Broken Sword for people who want to get into the genre, just because I feel like the game doesn't ask a lot of you other than to listen, and that again is where George comes in handy. We've talked about him, so let's have another little chat about him. Our goofball of a main character is pretty typical for a point-and-click hero. In a world full of Grahams, Guybrush's, and talking animals, George stands out for being pretty much the most normal of the bunch. That being said, his good qualities are very much lacking. I've said it before, he's rude and judgmental, gets involved with things he shouldn't, has no respect for people's property, which is why he's okay with breaking into the Countess's place to talk to her. But he really gets the job done. We're not forced to like him, so if you don't like him, there are plenty enough characters that will call him out on his poor behavior so you don't feel like he's getting away with whatever he's doing.
Hi. Do you speak English?
Well, no. What if I was to say no? An implication of cognizance shrouded in denial. A pretty poser of a paradox indeed.
I gave him the look I'd perfected when I was 12 and was going to be the greatest hypnotist of all time. It was a killer.
Are you attempting to hypnotize me, or is it the constipation you're suffering?
I was a little out of practice.
He is a charmer though, and he talks. He's not rude to people's faces unless they are Andre or the Juggler, and talking is the important part of this game, which makes George so good. There isn't a lot of useless yet witty dialogue like in the Discworld games. There isn't a bunch of riddles to solve, and it isn't there just to make you laugh.
Do you recognize this tissue? Think carefully now.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
I'm gonna have to hurry you.
Ooh.
Time's up, so I'll tell you. It's a used tissue with a liberal dump of Bestheimer's number 12.
If you say so.
George sits and talks to people. He learns from what they say. He asks questions like a detective would and puts the pieces together. Like I said before, he does all this at a pace that all viewers can keep up with.
Just let me have a look around. If I find nothing...
You'll be spending the night at the police station. Very well. Please, sit down.
Sure, moments like Andre's lore dump on the Templars can be long, but the important parts are then easily digested when we head back to Nichols and talk to her. The voice acting in the game is so good that you feel compelled to listen to whatever the characters are saying, and whilst I said the dialogue isn't there to make you laugh, there are so many good lines from so many amazing characters that you'll be constantly laughing all game long.
Did you see an old guy with a briefcase?
Wait, silly old coot. Do you know what he said to me? Work fascinates me, he says. I could watch it all day. Quel bit. I could have knocked his block off.
Did you recognize the old man?
No. Should I have done? Was he a celebrity?
No, but I guess he is now. His name was Plantar.
Was? He's dead then?
Yeah.
That's too bad. Now I wish I hadn't called him what I did. If only I could turn back the clock. If only I'd been more tolerant.
Regret and remorse are strange emotions. They really bring out the hammiest actors in people.
It's a very good entrance point for the genre as a whole, if I'm honest with you. Seeing I talked about the voice acting though, there is one thing that's a bit weird in the game that I need to mention. The recording of the voice acting is crazy. Some characters sound like they are recording in a booth, others sound like they're in a bubble of some kind, others have this really weird echo. It's just really weird how the recordings were done.
What a mess. This bombing is an outrage, is it not?
Stop that, monsieur! Stop holding your breath at once!
Has it occurred to you that he may be dead, Moo?
Oui, monsieur, but I prefer to look on the bright side.
Overall, the sound design of the game is fine. The music is relaxing and really does bring that full feel to it. The use of silence to highlight the real-world noises is great, as I've mentioned many times before. Any little sound effect they use just works as well, but sometimes you'll be listening to the dialogue and it will just feel off. It can also be a little quieter than your music, but you can turn the music down separately in the options. It doesn't take you out of the game at all, but it is noticeable, and you can get a bit of a chuckle out of it sometimes. One thing I really love though is a little swell of music when you progress.
I held the towel under the faucet and soaked it with water.
Like most games that give you an indication when things go right, the little sting to let you know feels like the game telling you to breathe because you finally got it. It isn't so loud and in your face like the Zelda one. And fits the mood and tone of the game perfectly. If you haven't figured it out yet, the tone of the game generally comes down to cozy murder mystery. This is a term I've heard Pushing Up Roses use to describe Murder, She Wrote, and honestly, this fits in so well with those kind of shows. And again, they are shows I grew up watching with my grandparents, so no wonder from a very young age, Broken Sword stood out for me. Whilst you have your action-packed scenes, a lot of the game is just about walking around the world and interacting with everyone and everything you find. I've constantly talked about how they recorded lines for just about everything, and that is where the coziness does come from. The characters in the game elevate this above quite a lot of its contemporaries, as NPCs weren't just there to give you vital dialogue, but to have a bit of banter with, add colour to the area you're visiting, or just have some fun with.
May I shake you by the hand?
I do not shake the hands of imperialist dogs.
Now that's a real bad attitude problem you've got there.
Personally, I do feel like these calmer moments where you're just chilling on a street corner talking to a drunken police officer or shooting the shit with Lopez in the garden make the more dramatic moments even bigger. You go from having a laugh with some drunks in the train to having to save Nico in the middle of a centuries-long war between Templars and Assassins. Which brings me to a part of the game I haven't really talked about yet. Broken Sword does actually have deaths, so please save often. I didn't want to ruin any potential deaths in the overview, but they are pretty well signposted in-game. It isn't like a misclick on a step will kill you or something.
No, stay away from the end!
Uh-oh, that last step was a doozy.
George is running after a murderer who turns out to be from an ancient assassin group going after Templars who will stop at nothing to sow discontent amongst the world and reforge this broken sword. There has to be some danger in there. We have some very shady characters, and when you see them around or smell trouble in the air, a quick save will do you good, and the deaths are part of the puzzle. Again, you aren't going to just misclick and die, but if you get in the way of a gangster or don't move quick enough when face to face with a gun, then obviously something bad is going to happen. All the game ever asks of you is to think clearly and to listen to what people are saying to you. Plus, as long as you save often, and I don't think there are many times, if any, that you can't actually just go into the menu and save, then the moment you smell trouble, as long as you have that handy save, or 10, then you can always make your way back to the save and try again. Nothing in the game feels unfair. It doesn't ask too much of you, and it doesn't waste your time. The only negative to the item pickup in this game that I've ever seen is through colorblindness. After watching someone play this with colorblindness, it became obvious that the so beautifully crafted world can have some problems in having some of the items stand out. The clown nose in the sewer and the bar mat in Ireland, to name just two of them. I don't know if this is something that Reforged will or can work around, but it was something I never thought about until I saw the Wolves playing this game. I mentioned throughout the beauty of the game, and it shouldn't come as a surprise if you know the beauty of Don Bluth Studios' works, but there is just a timeless majesty about the art of Broken Sword. The backgrounds are so detailed and rich that you could spend a lifetime looking at them and still see new details that you've missed the past 100 times you played the game. I don't know if I ever noticed that the roadmap of Paris is actually on the wall in the police station, and is kind of just hanging there with a corner kind of folded over. And as a kid, I for sure didn't appreciate the amount of variety and outfits there were to look at in the costume store. One thing I haven't mentioned though is the use of the foreground to make things look even grander. In the hospital, for example, as you are walking around the ward, you have a drip in the foreground, showing that whilst it looks like a simple enough ward, obviously we the audience are looking at it from the angle above another patient. It isn't just these 6 potential spots filled with patients, but more people are probably along the outside that we just can't see. In a similar vein, the church in Montfaucon has tombs in the foreground to make it feel like we're looking over these things, instead of in some kind of open vacuum of nothing facing the character. Tiny details like this help the movie-like feel the game has. It makes you feel like you are living in this world. I'm also a slut for any details in a game setting that makes a world feel lived in, and whilst there is a lack of pedestrian traffic, which would make sense in a game like this, the little idle animations as I've talked about of people living their lives, as well as the traffic animations in the background outside Nico's apartment, and the birds in the sky of the first area truly just make it feel like this isn't just a painted set piece for a game, but a world that you could crawl through your screen and live in. With that all said though, it is time for me to give my final thoughts on Broken Sword: The Shadow of the Templar. It is simply a classic. What? You want more? Okay, as I've said previously, this is a game that I generally do gush a lot about and recommend to people who want to get into the adventure game genre. It has such a solid story that, granted in my opinion, falls apart at the last moment, but which will keep you hooked to the very end, and whether you like the ending or not, it doesn't end up drawn out. The mystery and action keep you going right up to the last 10 or 20 minutes of the game, and that is all you can ask of it. The game should only take about 10 hours to finish, maybe a little more if you get stuck for long periods at Mr. Goat, but it is a healthy amount of time to be on the edge of your seat for. The story is such a huge selling point as well, because it has a little bit of everything for everyone. The dry wit and humour is there, a fun mystery is afoot, we have a killer clown assassin and old men plotting in underground caverns. A male lead who is both charming and a total git, but a cast around him that calls him out on it.
Think I've got time to watch everyone who passes by? Some of us have to work for a living.
He never ends up being able to do everything on his own, and his sidekick in his adventures, the beautiful Nico, always lets him know that he wouldn't have solved this without help.
Without Andre, we wouldn't have got this far, George.
Yeah, I know.
There is also the subtle romance with him and Nico, some nice little rivalries with others like Andre, but the game never takes itself or George too seriously. We travel the world, yet everything always feels so personal. As a game, it also just plays well. It has simple systems in place for the person playing to just get on with it. It is dialogue heavy, but it is pretty simple to keep on track. Item management and indeed just simple inventory puzzles always feel logical and normal. George is helpful in the way he interacts with the world, and the world makes sense in how it interacts with George. We also have a true face of evil staring right at us. No, not that one for a change. Broken Sword is a timeless classic because the game sweeps you off your feet and takes you into this world that George is living in without making you jump through hoops to understand his motivations or even the story at large. You could go the entire playthrough and learn nothing of the Templars from the many lore dumps, but you'd still enjoy the overall gameplay and the story that is happening in front of you. It holds up well at the end of the point-and-click boom because it didn't treat the audience like they were dumb and it never felt super unfair. The series spawned many sequels that it is fair to say failed to live up to its lofty name, and we do have Broken Sword 6 coming at us soon enough. The game has gone from beautiful 2D to some janky 3D and back to its roots. I plan on doing a retrospect for each game in the series going forward, from the highs of the first game to the low of the Angel of Death, and hopefully back to form with both the Serpent's Curse and the new title, Percival's Stone.
Remembering a murderous clown, a deadly explosion, and a day that changed my life forever.
I really can't wait to take this journey with you either. Alas, the story of the Shadow of Templars has come to an end though. As I said, this is my first dabble into longer form videos. I feel I can waffle on for eternity on so many things, and I wanted to really look at Broken Sword as a series, and the longer I worked on it, the more I wanted to do it justice, and an essay of this kind seemed the best way. Please do let me know if you like this, or not, as it will help me decide on whether I should continue these types of videos after finishing Broken Sword, maybe for a deep dive into my love of the Discworld and its games, as well as other classics and new games that I love. Right now though, as always, we need the plugs. As of making this recording, we are 5 subscribers away from 100 here on YouTube, and would love if you watched this video and found it interesting. If you could like, leave a comment, and join me in my random journey. This YouTube is a mix of a lot of stuff, mainly my VODs from streaming on Twitch, but also from time to time highlights and other original content. Sadly, I suffer from agoraphobia and extreme mental health problems, so motivating myself to do work is a very slow process, which is why I stream full-time over on twitch.tv/Annakuma with 2 A's at the end. Oh yes, we rebranded. I kind of wanted to rebrand for most of this year, but a lot of people were rebranding around me and I never felt confident. Streaming was never meant to be my full-time job. I worked before I became agoraphobic, and it genuinely was a last resort when my mental health got so bad I couldn't do anything. A worker is an old username that was fine when I was doing this as a hobby, but I felt I needed more personality to my name, and my model's name had always been Annakuma, so we rebranded. This does mean all my previous videos are incorrect, and I doubt I'll ever have the mental strength to sort links out on them, but from now on you'll only find me over at Annakuma. And I'd love to have you. I am aiming for 1k followers on Twitch by the end of 2024. Sadly, I haven't really been able to make a big step forward in that goal, but who knows, if this video does well and you are watching and would like to see more from this bear, then maybe you could help me reach that goal. I will also be playing Reforged as soon as I get the key for the game, so depending on when this video is out and when I get the key, I might be streaming it right now. This is all for now though, friends. Thank you for sticking with me throughout this video. Again, please let me know if it was of any interest to you. But until next time, friends, be safe from killer clowns, always help Spanish countesses overcome their family's dishonor, and keep safe. Thank you, and bye-bye.